Good evening from Vietnam. Let's thanks a lot for spending your morning to join our Inside Sharing show and share your story with our audience. On behalf of the program we and our audience, we want to say thank you very much for joining.
You're most welcome, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And Les, I know that you have yet been to our country, but in our culture, it's going to be great honor for our audience if we can have you to help introducing about who you are and a little bit about the works that you do. Would you please do that for us, please?
Sure. Well, a short biography. My name is Les Evans. I'm from Canada. I was born and raised here. In fact, my great grandparents were Canadian settlers. They came to this country from Ukraine originally in 1898. So my family's been in Canada for 124 years. And I grew up half city boy and half country boy because we had a country farm. And so when you live in the city and you live on the farm, you learn humility, you learn hard work, because hard work is farming is hard work, but you also learn how to get along with all sorts of different types of people. And I thought one of the greatest keys to my success in my personal life was the ability to get along with almost anybody. And in my life, that served me really well because I've been to 24 countries. I've worked in 78 cities in 24 countries of all kinds of backgrounds all over the world, in Asia, in Europe, in Australia, all over the place, including North America. But I started off as a young boy. I wanted to be a rock star, like a lot of people. So I started playing drums very young because I loved music, and in fact, I became a professional musician when I was 16 years old. So I started playing for money in a working band, and I always believed an artist was in the music business. I didn't take handouts. My band was that was my first entrepreneurial journey, was to build a working band. We were professional entertainers, and I did that for about 10 years. Eventually, I couldn't do it anymore because my voice had taken too much of a beating. So I ended up, funny enough, working for the Postal Service for a very brief time because I needed a steady job, and it was government, so it paid very well. But after a short period of time, in about a year, that just was not for me because I always had an entrepreneurial mindset. So a friend of mine had recruited me to try and sell life insurance because he was doing very well. And he said, well, you've got a good personality. You should be successful at sales. And what I didn't realize is selling is very much a skill, and it's very much a specific skill. Personality doesn't really have that much to do with it. And so in about 6 months, I was very successful at sales. I was selling my guitar, I was selling my furniture because I was failing terribly. And back in those days, and this is going back to about 1986, because I'm probably older than most of your audience, at that time, there was no such thing as a coach or a mentor. There were books at the library, and there were, cassette tapes in those days, for those who can remember that. But I searched around fervently to find a mentor who could teach me how to sell. And I ended up getting introduced to an older man. He was, at that time, about 20 years older than me, and he was a door-to-door vacuum cleaner salesman. Wow. If you can imagine. Now that sometimes conjures up images of, the Hollywood stereotypes of sleazy salespeople. But he was a very honorable man, a very honest man, and he was really successful. He was making in those days $100,000 a year selling vacuum cleaners. And I begged
$100,000 a year.
Yes, in 1986.
Wow,
yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Yes, it was a tremendous amount of money because he was selling about 40 vacuum cleaners a month. And I was like, how do you do that? And I had to really kind of beg him, but he saw that I was serious. And I joined the company. He decided to sell a different product, which was cookware, like pots and pans, door to door. And you would do in-home demonstrations. You'd cook for people. You'd have 3 or 4 couples, and you'd go. So I had to learn I already knew how to cook, but I'd have to do a cook and sell this cookware. Now, this cookware at that time was $2,500 a set in 1986. It's very expensive. When I joined this company, they had 2,500 representatives worldwide. I was 2501. I was the last of the bunch. But I studied with him. I spent a bit of time with him every single day, and within 90 days, I was the number 3 salesperson, wow. And he was number 2. And that's when I found out the power of mentorship. And I say mentorship specifically because there are coaches and there are mentors. Coaches tend to push you and hold you accountable. He was much more than that. He provided me insights and wisdom. And one of the things he told me as a piece of advice in selling, believe it or not, was whatever you do, don't read any sales books because they really tell it like it isn't. And in those days, he was right. I did discover that most of the sales books were written by people who had only sold books. And that may be very controversial to somebody who reads a lot of sales books, but at that time it was very, very wise advice. So I simply learned firsthand from him all the nuances of selling and working with people. And that's why I say I come from a place of knowing. And then after that, together we built a successful business. We sold, I think, $4 million worth of cookware over 2 years. And if I fast forward, I took that experience of door-to-door selling and I created an investment company 20 years ago. And I discovered that instead of doing presentations one-on-one in somebody's home, like most advisors do, I put together small seminars and I would present to groups. Because why do a 90-minute presentation to one person when I could do it to 100 people? And I started to promote myself, and I did some seminars in Canada. And a business seminar promoter spotted me in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and he said, "I'd love to promote you." And my business just took off like a shot. I ended up building my business across Canada and the United States. I brought in over 1,000 customers myself. Wow. Because I became highly skilled at speaking. And eventually I sold that company after about 10 years. I took a break. And when I was 50 years old, a very good friend of mine approached me in Toronto, Canada to say, "Hey, how'd you like to be a business coach?" I'd never dreamed of being a professional speaker. I had no goal whatsoever to become a inspirational speaker or motivational speaker. I just worked and built the business and used that knowledge as I went along. But he said, "I'd like you to become a business coach." And I said to him, and this was it was about 10 years ago now, and I said, what's that? I don't even know what that is. Because I'd never had a coach. I'd only had one mentor in my life. The rest was all self-taught. So they invited me down to Toronto, and there was a crowd of 500 people. And he said, "Well, you used to be a speaker, right?" And I said, "Well, I did sales presentations." "Yeah, but you know business." I said, "Yes." They said, "Well, we'd like you to get up and speak." I said, "Well, whenever you'd like, sure." And they said, "Well, right now, in 5 minutes." Yeah. So it was no preparation. They asked me to speak for 90 minutes in front of 500 people. And this was the first time that I'd ever taught from just my knowledge and whatever wisdom I'd acquired. And so I simply made some simple notes. I talked on 8 or 9 different subjects, about 10 minutes each. And when I finished, I got a standing ovation and I got mobbed by about 60 people. And I thought, what in the world is going here? And everybody came running up and said, "Who is this guy? Where did he come from?" And then they put me on a tour, and I spent 8 years touring the world. And that's how I ended up where I was.
Oh my God.
Very successful. And I was able to work right at the highest levels with speakers. I've spoken events with Tony Robbins. I've been some of the biggest movie stars in the world I've worked with. I mean, it's just, I've worked with George Ross, who was Donald Trump's first right-hand man. He was on The Apprentice. It's been amazing. it's like a dream you can only imagine doing, but I actually really have lived it. So
Wow.
yeah, there you go.
See, Les, if that's too many of us to remember as one from a city, and half city boy, half farm boy, right? Grow up, want to be a rock
Yeah.
star, and lost your voice, so that you have to work for, like the government Canadian post, right? And then you
Yeah, I
look
was a
out,
mailman.
man, and then you went out and become a salesperson, very successful salesperson. Then starting to, instead of doing door to door selling, then you go on the whole seminar to selling to more people at once, and then
Hmm.
having, your own company and doing the international speaking businesses like this, and that is fascinating. Everything that you touch is like it's never a linear way. It's like up and down, up and down, up until now, right?
Well, no, don't get me wrong. I mean, it was not easy. There were
Mm,
ups and downs, but the thing is, if you have a belief that you are meant to do something special with your life,
mm,
then you will keep going. And I've always believed I was blessed to do something special with my life. I've always believed that I had great purpose in my life. I believe we all do.
mm,
I just think sometimes people forget that, or they lose that, or they get distracted by life, and it happens to all of us.
mm,
So if you've ever been in that position where you're struggling, we all struggle.
mm,
The people who have amazing achievements that sometimes you say, gee, I wish I could do that. When you say you want to wish to be like somebody, remember there's a lot of struggle in between. But it's these things that make you who you are. And you make lots of mistakes.
mm,
And I heard a great expression once from someone who said that sometimes when you're going through your life and you're struggling through your life, there's frustration and there's difficulty. Some things work, some things don't. And you look at it and it looks like a painting, but it's just a mess of paint splatters.
mm,
But eventually, when you step back later in your life, you start to realize that those paint strokes turn into a masterpiece.
mm,
So all of those things go into making you and making who I am today. All of those things, the good, the bad, the ugly, have made me who I am today. And I think they make me a better person for
mm,
it because it develops your character. Life is not just about success and achievement. It's about staying together with your wife for 34 years.
mm.
There's a real achievement because I have a beautiful wife. We've been together for 34 years. So
Wow. Les,
all of those,
yeah. Um, it is really really hard to go against all the winds sometimes, right? Like when your dream as a young boy was to become a rock star. You start your own
mhm,
band, and then you run in, you perform in the song. You even got the award for songwriting, like you said earlier
yes,
also, right? So
yep.
you've been recognized well for the works that you do, and then all of a sudden things hit you, and things hit us every, from time to time. But a lot of people will, like look at it and cry out about that, let them down. But you did not let them down. And then even, in during that period of time, you also sell your equipment, so it's even make the wound even deeper. And so tell us, how did you manage the challenge like that, and still have the belief that goodness is ahead, the great thing is ahead? Yeah.
You again, and I wouldn't pretend to preach spiritual beliefs, but my personal belief is that there is a God, a creator, and that we are meant for great things. But great things take time. I always love the analogy, I believe it's of the Chinese bamboo tree that takes 5 years to grow.
Mm,
And it's a great analogy because it's, to my understanding, when you want to plant one of these trees, you plant it, and then you have to make a commitment to water this every day for 5 years without fail. If you miss one day of watering, the plant dies. Now
mm,
here's the conundrum. The plant shoots, like maybe a seedling starts off about this high,
mm,
And so for 5 years, you're watering and watering, and it's not growing at all. So you can imagine how frustrating that would be, never seeing any progress. It's year 1 and year 2 and year 3. And at this point, most people would just give up. But a miracle happens at the end of 5 years. At the end of 5 years, the tree begins to grow. And it grows so rapidly, it grows something like 90 feet in 3 months. See, because in those 5 years, all the watering, it's been building its root system underneath to support this tremendous growth later. And quite often that's what happens. We all develop at different rates. You know, everybody, some people, which is why it's ridiculous to compare yourself to somebody who is, maybe they started earlier and gets very successful at age 28 or 30. You don't know the backstory. They may have started much earlier. They may have had advantages you don't have, but we're here to run our own race. So I just knew that at some point in time, if I just kept working on myself, because to create wealth, we have to create value for others. And to create value for others, we must become highly skilled at something. Most people don't succeed because they fail to become highly skilled at one thing. And to make a distinction for you, I believe there are two things, and people will argue with me. They have argued with me on this, but it's my belief, so I'm allowed to have it. I believe you can have a passion, you can follow your passion, or you can follow your path. Now, sometimes they're the same things, but usually not. Now, for example, music was my passion. I love music. It inspires me. It's part of my daily ritual. I listen to music that inspires me every day. I have a whole ritual to my life. I have a formula that I follow every day that creates a successful life. Because if you have one successful day, another successful day, you have a successful week, successful month. I mean, it sounds like common sense, but to do it, to apply yourself every day, to do daily habits every day, takes discipline. And it means turning off the TV. It means going to bed early. It means eating healthy, keeping yourself fit, focus, things like this. So my passion was music, but your path is what you find yourself doing naturally on a daily basis that doesn't feel like work. Music, to practice music is difficult. It's work. Now, for those who have a passion and their path is music, they just naturally want to practice 9 hours a day. Because you've probably heard of the 10,000 hour rule before.
Yep.
Okay, that's incorrect. It takes 30,000 hours to mastery.
Wow.
So where they got 10,000 hours from, I don't know. I think Malcolm Gladwell had it. There was another gentleman who wrote Your Brain on Music. It was written by a University of Toronto professor. It takes 30,000 hours. You ask, I've worked with rock stars. I know rock stars. It takes 10 hours a day for 10 years to become a real, genuine, bona fide rock star. If you want to become a musician that's going to be famous, the skill level it takes, 10 hours a day for 10 years, or 3 hours a day for 30 years.
Wow.
So I did not naturally want to practice that much. Music comes from skill. It takes tremendous amount of hard work and effort, just like becoming a doctor. Now, my path was, when I was a postman, I was fairly ignorant. I knew how to make a band, but I still was very young, was very ignorant. One day I stopped at a pharmacy. I went to buy like a Coca-Cola or something like that. And as I was waiting in line, there was a book stand there, and there was a book, and I saw it. It's on how to win friends and influence people.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that book has been around for a long time now, but I thought, wow, what's this? You know, I thought, this is fascinating. And so I bought it, and I would read it on my breaks, and that unlocked something in my mind, and I went crazy. I went to the library, and I said, I've never known this. This information is amazing. And I made a commitment. I said, not only am I going to read this book and study this book, I am going to become this book. Wow. I'm going to, all the character traits of this, I'm going to become. I'm going to be the living embodiment of this book. That's the commitment I made. And then I went just crazy and I started studying 2 to 3 hours a day. I got every book and I literally emptied the library. And so I naturally, and to this day, I still spend at least 2 hours doing that,
Wow.
learning. So I've been doing that for almost 40 years now.
Wow.
See, that was my path. My path was what I did naturally. And I'm still, don't get me wrong, I'm still quite talented musically. But by taking this path, I found myself doing things naturally that ended up shaping me into a professional. And so my peers today, even though, there's a lot of people in the world who've never heard of me. One of my great friends, Reggie Batts, he worked on Tony Robbins' executive committee for 10 years. I worked with Reggie for 8 years. He said, I would need to tell you something. He goes, even though you're not famous, you're one of the greatest speakers in the world. And I was shocked by that. I said, oh, come on, you're kind of embarrassed by that. But he said, listen, I worked with Tony Robbins. He's the biggest in the world. And I'm telling you, you are one of the greatest speakers in the world. And to hear that compliment from somebody that I respect was just amazing. So I had ended up, and I believe, to my belief system, that this was God's path for me, because I just found myself naturally doing it. It wasn't easy, but it's like I can't stop not learning,
Yep.
But for me, learning and reading and listening is not enough. I take the things that I take, I try to use my discernment and say, is this real? Does this work in real life? I take the information I learned from the books and podcasts and I apply it to my life and I see if it works. Just because something's written in a book doesn't mean it's true. So wisdom comes to know which is real and which is not. And that has served me really, really well today. So particularly when if I'm mentoring somebody or coaching somebody, people often say it's like drinking from a fire hose because I've gotten rid of all the fluffy knowledge that doesn't work and I just tell you what does work. And so my coaching clients and mentoring students have always said, just shut up and do what Les tells you to do and things will work.
Let's see how beautiful life is. Like you mentioned, we from the East, have that belief. Also, you really convinced believe that life have some path, already planned out for us. Imagine that day when you were, as a male career, right? If you not stopped by that library, or even if you stopped by that library, but you did not pick, that book, your life could probably go to a different direction. You see?
It absolutely. That was one of those things. There was three or four monumental things that happened in my life that changed my life. One of them was that book.
Yes.
Another one is when I sought out my mentor and I found him. Another one was when I met my wife. And another one, of course, was when my son was born. And my son is a great example of someone who followed their path. And his path is the same as his passion. When he was very young, I bought him a very small plastic movie camera. He loved movies. And so he would spend every waking hour writing scripts. And I mean, he would spend 8-10 hours a day writing. I bought him, I don't know how many computers. And today he's a very successful filmmaker and movie maker in Toronto. He's a director and producer and filmmaker.
Wow.
And he's one of the few business people who have actually made it and is making it in the film business. And it took him a long time. It took him 20 years. He's 36 years old now, but he is in that rare position of doing what people only dream about, following your path. So I think you really have to listen to your inner voice. And sometimes you don't want to follow your path, but you get nudged back on your path. Life will do that. Sometimes when you're getting off your path, and sometimes life, or maybe, God makes things difficult for you to make you stronger. Because when you go through difficult things, you get much stronger. It's just like when you exercise, you become much stronger. Life becomes easier when you are stronger.
Mm.
And we have to have physical strength. We need great spiritual strength. And we also have to maintain morale. They used to say in the war where they'd have the soldiers, you have to keep up your morale. It's very difficult to keep up your morale today because we're bombarded. We're living in a world today that's trying to tear away at our beliefs. It's trying to tear down our hope. It's trying to tear down and weaken our perseverance and our spirit. And now more than ever, we need people who are throwing back in. My wife and I, we had a difficult time through COVID as well because it affected all of our businesses. It's affected everyone.
Yep.
And I frankly, I let it get to me. It was starting to get me down. I started putting on a lot of weight. I wasn't in shape anymore. I didn't want to do this anymore. I didn't want to coach. I didn't want to mentor. I didn't want to speak to anybody. I was just at that point in my life. And then something changed where a very good friend of mine passed away during COVID, and it was devastating to me. Then my wife lost her father. We couldn't go to the funeral. And I said, you know what? This is a message. We need to make a change. So we decided to move across the country, move back to where my family's from, so we could be around for our elderly parents, which we did. We just helped them out moving and stuff. And then I decided to completely transform myself. Because the belief systems that you have that got you where you are today will now become the handcuffs that hold you back. See, we always have to change. You can't think the same way. We're not in the new normal, we're in the new abnormal. So I decided to make a radical change. I said, I'm going to get in physical shape. I'm going to change my routine. I'm going to go to bed early. I'll be up at 6 o'clock in the morning at the very latest. I put together a very specific diet routine, a workout routine. I work out now 6 days a week. In 3 months, I dropped 37 pounds.
Wow.
I went from a size 38 waist to a size 33. I'm in phenomenal shape now in 90 days. My blood pressure is normal. I created a brand new 6-figure business in 90 days. And that was all focus. So I built a blueprint for doing this that I follow every single day. And now I'm starting up again in mentoring because now my focus has changed. I have the ability now, and now I have friends coming to me. They're like, what did you do? In 90 days, they're like, who is this guy? And because I'm 60 years old now, but my friends are like, you seem to be aging backwards now. They're like, so
Les,
it's all, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I'm listening.
I was just going to say that you can, no matter where you're at in your life, you always have the ability to refocus your efforts. You see, because it's not about how much resources you have, because all of us have resources, some more than others, but it's about how resourceful are you. Now, the reason I say you have to manage your morale is if your mindset is in a bad space, if you're not in a space of gratitude, like my mother always used to say, when you feel bad, count your blessings, right? And you're like, phooey. But about 4 months ago, when we were here, we just had finished a move, and I was still focusing, how am I going to turn things around here? How am I going to do this? And I ran into a homeless husband and wife. They were homeless when I was going by a fast food restaurant to buy a coffee. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go talk to them because everyone was ignoring them. And when you're homeless, you become ignored. So I went to talk to them, and their names were Raymond, and I'm just trying to remember the lady's name. I just struck up a conversation, and at first they were hesitant, but I started talking with them, and I spoke to them for probably about 40 minutes, and they were really nice people who had fallen on really, really hard times. And so we were able to, I said, listen, I'm going to go buy some food. Let's have some lunch and dinner here together. And I'm not saying I'm a savior or a saint or anything. That's not the point of this story. The point is it changed me profoundly because I went, how lucky am I that I have an opportunity like this to reinvent everything we've done. And it took me from a place of saying, I'm complaining that, oh, I don't have this, and COVID screwed up this, and blaming this and this and this. I said, okay, who do I know? Who do I know? Because a lot of times people, when they're trying to turn their life around, they say, how am I going to get out of this? How am I going to do this? I find the better questions to ask yourself are, who do I know? What do I want to do? What do I want to do? Not complain, how do I do this, but what do I want to do? Well, I want to get back into shape. I want to create new relationships. I want to start a new business. Okay, great. Who do I know? Who do I know that can help me with this? Because if you have a vision, and you can sell your vision to other people, they'll help. People love to join people with big vision. And if I can share that one thing with your audience, I always had big dreams. In fact, last week I ran into a couple that a friend I grew up with. And he said, what happened to you? You disappeared like 30 years ago. I said, I had to leave. I had big dreams for my life. I wanted to do big things, and I did. They go like, what did you do? I did this. I became a huge professional speaker, very successful. I traveled the world, 24 countries. And they're like, oh my God. And they, so it's having that vision and the tenacity to go after. That's the only difference. Is you want to do it, and that's the end of that. I just wanted it more than, and I was willing to put up and struggle and fight through it. Everyone you admire today has struggled to get where they are. It is not easy. If you think it's easy, tough getting there, it's tough staying there. When you're at the very top of the game and you're working with professionals, you have to deliver. There's no such thing as being sick at sea.
Yep.
One time I was at Singapore, and I was actually very sick, and I didn't think I could speak, but I was booked to speak, and I went and spoke for 3 hours straight, and I was just dripping sweat afterwards. And it was probably one of my best speeches afterwards. People are like, wow, that was amazing. So you have to be at your very best, just like a professional athlete or like a rock star in front of 10,000 people. It's the same thing. You want to bring your very, very best every single day. You have to play when you're in business or your relationship. You have to play like it's the last day of your life. If you bring that kind of passion to what you do, and I'm an extremely passionate person, as you can tell, that's what I bring to the table every single time. Because if you want to move people to action, you have to have those feelings yourself. Nobody's going to follow somebody who's uninspired, And I have the people that I work with right now. I'm working with a company here locally to help increase their sales because of the example I set, and I don't preach to them. They've all started to eat healthy. They're all of a sudden, the last couple of weeks, they're like, we feel guilty because you eat so healthy. And I said, well, I'm not trying to make you feel guilty, but they're like, yeah, but look at you. You're fit and you're in shape, and you make the rest of us look bad. So that's inspiration by action.
Yeah, Les, a lot of the people around us jump off the boat so quickly. So they're not going to be, they're not giving themselves the privilege to stick a little bit longer to see the end results, right? And so if the people listen to this show and they might face challenging at the moment, and you would like them to believe in the path, that already there for them, and help them to be stick with the path a little longer and have more strength to face with the challenging winds like this. What baby steps should they take now at this moment for them to grow, their strengths?
The biggest thing to do is to try not to do too many things in your life. Most people try to do too many things. I focus on 3 things in my life. One of them is my income, one of them is my health, and one of them is joy. Personal joy. Literally. There was an American movie called The Bucket List.
The Bucket List, yes.
With Morgan Freeman, and there's a phrase in there. He said the ancient Egyptians at the end of your life would ask you 2 questions. Have you found joy in your life? Number 1. And then number two, has your life brought joy to others? And I like that. I like that as a rule as a belief system to run my life. So the things in my life, everything that's in my life, number one, either has to contribute to my income, it has to contribute to my health. And when I say health, I mean mental health and wellness and physical health and my morale. And then joy, it has to contribute to my joy. So if something contributes to my joy, like taking my wife out, spending time with her, family time, just 3 circles. That's it. I live by 3 circles, and those circles have little circles in between. My business, income, well, here's one thing. If the activity contributes to my joy, my health, or my income, I do them. Anything that does not, I erase out of my life.
Wow.
You see what I mean?
I see what I mean. And the number 3 thing seems to be, the third one, joy. It sounds easy, seems easy to have to accomplish, but it's extremely hard for many people, Les. Because the many speakers that joined our show, and they all sharing that, we can easily see the success come to them because of the part of their works really create joy and sharing joy to people around them. But it's hard for many people, including the lovely lady in my life is my mom, and we always try to encourage her to enjoy life, to feel better, to find joy in what she does. So tell us more about joy to you, Les. You seem to be fully enjoying.
First of all, again, every day, I'll just bring this up to show you an example. Every day, part of my routine is I journal. And what I do in this journal is I have a few things. I have my schedule for the day here. I have goals that I write down here. I have today's goal, so a daily goal. In the morning gratitude list.
Wow.
This is how the way you find joy is either through prayer, one of these ways, or through writing down what you're grateful for. And I have to tell you, for the longest time, I thought, oh, that's nonsense. That's another one of those woo-woo things they say. I can tell you that this turned my life around in so many ways. Because here, like one of them I wrote this particular morning, and this was September 22. What was I grateful for that morning? A beautiful sunrise. A beautiful sunrise. Because people who are dead don't get to see them.
Absolutely.
No, think about it. I mean, it sounds so trivial, but to be able to find joy in a little thing is really, really important. Because we're so spoiled so many times. Oh, this isn't right and this isn't right. And don't get me wrong, I get like that too. But and then in the evening, what am I grateful for in the evening? Well, I'm grateful for my new home. I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful that my son just got a new script contract. None of those things make me money, but they certainly bring me joy.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
And
you have to derive joy. If you can't find joy in little things, you'll never find them in big things, because you'll never be grateful. You always try to on more and more and more. And it really goes back to starting, like I said, helping. If you're complaining, if you don't feel things are right, go help somebody who's less fortunate than you. I'm serious. Find a homeless person, help somebody. It's the greatest cure for feeling sorry for yourself, because we tend to feel sorry for ourselves. And I've done it, believe me. I'm a human being just like everybody else. But when you feel sorry for yourself, you can't make forward progress. You're not in a resourceful state. But when I can listen to a 3-minute piece of music, and whoa, that just makes me feel great. And I'm grateful that somebody wrote that, because feelings, if you want to know because people say, what's the most valuable commodity in the world? Some people say gold, silver, human resources. The most valuable commodity in the world is feelings. Feelings. People will pay anything to feel, and they do. People will pay money to feel loved. People will pay money to feel inspired. People pay. Why do you go watch a sports match? Because you want to feel something. Why do you go to a movie? Because you want to feel something. Why do you fall in love? Because you want to feel something. Why do you have children? Because you want to feel something. So if you can understand which feelings are important to you, which feelings bring you joy, then this becomes a little thing, and you build, again, to have one successful day at a time. You can't try and worry about 20 years. It doesn't work that way. It's like when you're a songwriter, once in a while the song will just come to you, but usually it doesn't. Usually it comes in little bits and pieces, and frankly, I often have to struggle through it. It's painstaking. It's like trying to do a painting. It's frustrating. It can take me 60 hours to make a 3-minute song, and it's all in parts, and it doesn't work, and I'm like, this doesn't work, and I have to throw this out and replace this, and it's frustrating. But the reason I keep going is I know at the end I'm going to have something I'm proud of. And I just do this for myself. So songwriting is part of my joy component. Because my mother said, well, why do you write songs? Because I can, and because you can't. That's why. No, because I mean, this is a God-given gift. I have a talent as a musician. I'm actually quite a good musician and quite a good singer as well as being a speaker.
And because
So
you spend over 30,000 hours doing that in your life also, right? So it makes you a master at it also.
Well, and see, and this is the thing, and that should give people hope.
Yeah.
So you need to get to work. you have to get to work, because if you don't do the work, like I said, my son, when he's on film sets, he has crew members that work 8 hours a day, and they're like, well, we're done work. And he goes, well, I'm not done. He works on a film set 17 hours a day. That's what it takes, you know. Yeah. When I was a professional speaker, I would sometimes fly, you know, for an entire day to get to Australia and get there in the morning, shower, and I'm on stage. I mean, and I've got to speak all day. That's what it takes. You can't sit and complain that, oh, I'm so jet lagged, and oh, I just flew 24 hours, because that's how long it takes. You would go from Toronto, Canada to Vancouver, and then Vancouver to Melbourne, for example. That's an entire day. So that's where I say you have to have mental toughness. Most people today, and including myself, I have times where I allowed myself to become weak, because life is difficult. It will beat you down, and you have to find joy. Joy's not going to come to you. You have to look for it, and you have to want it in your life, and you have to start appreciating the things that are small. Once you appreciate small little things, my wife quite often will pull me over and go, look, there's some partridges running in the field across the street. And that's like, oh, big deal, a bunch of birds. No. It means she's smart enough to take me aside and say, look, life is happening right here. This is a little magical moment right now. Wow. And to take the time to appreciate that, you know, because these creatures are amazing. When you start to stop bitching about life, and I've done plenty of that, but the thing that gets me refocused is I go, look at this. I got a rabbit in my backyard. That's a miracle. These creatures are miraculous. I mean, we spotted 60 different species of birds. I think God's creations are amazing if you just take the time to pay attention. Turn off Netflix, turn off your games, and get out there and start living life. Yeah. You got to play in the game of life. Everybody's so obsessed with gaming. I'm like, turn that crap off. You're wasting your life. You know, the gamers are living their dreams. I didn't watch concert films. I was a rock star in very many ways. You know, I was a speaking rock star. Still am when I feel like it. So,
Les, in your life, like you create the new vision every time, right? And then when you hit it, you smash it, you create the new one. Then you hit it, you smash it, and you create a new one again. And I really admire
Mhm.
that, and that give me the feeling. And I believe that many of our audience also have the feelings of admiration towards the works that you do, the challenge that you faced, and the strength that you gave to yourself, and also the people around you that that gave you the support, so that together you guys can go through the challenging together. And I have two last questions, to explore that together with you today. All right.
Sure.
And
Hmm.
let's. The first question is, my wife and I have been on the quest to help people to improve their ability to think. All right. And like you say, stop playing game, going out, enjoy life as it is, because we are playing the game of life, right? So that
Yeah.
we believe that our ability to think these days actually is not increasing but diminishing. All right. So every chance that we are able to talk to the people who are expert like you are, we will ask you, how have you been helping yourself to expand your ability to think less?
Well, one of the things I do, and this might be very useful, is to examine your beliefs,
Mm,
because many of us have limiting beliefs,
mm,
and we all do. Now, I just want to make an intellectual separation here, if I may.
yes.
I'm not talking about your religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs. I just want to talk about life beliefs, about what you can do, what you're capable, all those different things. Okay.
Mm,
The word beliefs starts with a B, ends with an S, and has the word lie in the middle of it. That's
mm.
because most beliefs are lies and BS. Okay. And I'll tell you what, because the way our brain, and I've studied neuroscience for 3 years. Our brains are really, really interesting. They're an incredible miracle. They really are. So we have three parts to our brain. We have the logical brain, which is the neocortex here. This is our thinking brain, the brain that does the reading and the mathematics and the logic and the hard mental work. And then we have what's called our mammalian brain, which is our feeling brain. That's our artistic brain, the creative side. Then we have our primitive brain, which is located way back here. That's our primal brain. Its sole function is survival.
Mm,
That's it. And the primal brain is very, very fast. And it operates subconsciously. 90% of our behavior is subconscious behavior, because this brain is too slow for the modern age we lived in. It was okay for 150 years ago, but it is really slow. It's smart, but it's very, very slow.
mm,
So our primal brain is constantly evaluating. When we meet, the brain is going, is this a friend or a foe? Is this a threat or an enemy? Is this person an asset or a liability
mm.
to me? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Are you going to be a useful resource, or are you going to be a drain on my resources? The primal brain figures that out about that fast. That fast.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is the brain, to save time, makes connections, because it doesn't have time to think all the time. So we develop beliefs that say, well, if this happens, then it means this.
Mm,
And that's a belief system. But a lot of times those beliefs are falsely created. And so we develop limiting beliefs that say, well, I must have money to succeed.
mm,
And if I don't have X amount of money, then I'm not a success.
mm,
Well, where did that come from? So one way to challenge your beliefs,
mm,
it's helpful. Self-examination is really helpful, to examine your beliefs. Because a lot of times the thing that's holding us back is not our resources. Like in this case, I must have money to succeed. That's saying I need a resource. It's our lack of resourcefulness. So one way to challenge a negative or limiting belief is to ask yourself a question like this. If you have a belief, for example, that says, well, you have to know somebody to succeed. You know, you have to know somebody. It's who you know,
Mm.
right? That there's a limiting belief that a lot of people have. Oh, he had money, or he had an advantage because it's who he knows. So if you have a limiting belief like that, ask yourself this question, and your audience will want to write this down. What if the opposite is true?
What if?
What if the opposite is true?
Mm.
What if you don't have to know somebody? What if the opposite is true? What if you don't need money to succeed? If you don't need money, what can I do? If I don't have money and I don't need money, what do I need to do? Well, you go back to that same question. Who do I know and what do I need to do? And then if you don't know somebody, you can say, okay, who do I need to know?
Mm.
Who do I need to get to know? Because the interesting thing, and a lot of people don't know this, but I'll tell you, you reached out to me for help.
Yep.
To be a guest on your show.
Yes.
We've never met before.
Never.
You'll find people who are successful. The higher up you go, the nicer they are. When you ask sincerely for help, you'll get it. That's why I'm here. I don't charge any money for my time and advice.
Thank you.
Because you sincerely reached out to advice. So right there, you've just gained a new friend just by asking. And it didn't cost you any money and you didn't know many. So we just obliterated two big beliefs right there.
Absolutely. Thanks, Les, for bringing this story up. Thanks a lot for sharing that. Well, you know, and that brings me back to when I first started. You know, like we also have a lot of limiting beliefs like that. We, you know, like who's to ask and stuff. And what if the person say no? And I told to my wife,
Ask again.
Yeah, I say there will be people say no, but there will also people say yes. So you know, if we don't ask, we will never have anything. So you know, all we need to do is ask, and then but we have to have the right kind of asking, right? I cannot come to you and just you know bother your time and ask you know nonsense, you know, but have to have a right manner of asking also. So Les, thanks a lot for bring the story up, and thanks a lot for being my friend also. Okay.
My pleasure. I've gained a new friend myself. So
Yep. So the next trip, if you your family and you travel to Vietnam, you have a new friend. You know, my families are here to welcome you guys. Okay.
that'd be fantastic. I look forward to doing that again because I do miss. I love meeting people.
Yeah.
I just, you know what? People are a pain in the butt, but I love them. You know? And we're all like that, by the way. I'm a pain in the butt to other people too, you know. But that's life. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
So.
Well, now to the last question for today, and we know the farm boy, city boy, with the dream to become a rock star, and you are the one, and then now you rocking the stage, you know, giving the speech, right? We want to head a little bit into the future, Les. Okay, is there anything that Les Evans working on that you are exciting? You want to share with me and the audience so we now can celebrate with you in advance?
I think what it is I'm going to share with people the formula that I created in the last 4 months that has radically changed my life. Because I had to rewire my brain. You have to rewire your mindset to succeed. If you get stuck, the reason you're saying stuck is for this simple reason. Albert Einstein said, the consciousness that creates the problem will not be the consciousness that solves the problem. The mindset that is keeping you stuck where you're at right now must change, because that's the mindset that got you this far, but your mindset that takes you to one place will now hold you at that place, because it always has a limitation. Anytime you're hitting a limitation in your life, yes, there are external factors. We can't control external factors. So if you can't change the external factors, you must change how you're looking at your life. You must change your perception. If you change the way you perceive your condition, and so I use different tools to help. I say, okay, I have to look at the world in a different way, and I need to do something different. Because to break through a barrier, you're going to need tremendous strength. That was the first thing I concluded. I said, I need to rebuild my physical strength, my mental strength, my spiritual strength, my morale, and my focus. I need to clear out the clutter of things, because life, there are right now so many things tearing away at us to try and distract us off our path. There's so many distractions. So it takes daily diligence to take away these distractions that tear, because people want to call me up. Oh, yeah, I just want to talk. I don't have time to talk, because they want to talk about small talk. Small people talk about, they gossip. I have no time for idle gossip. It's just a bad habit. I don't want to talk about other people. I'm interested in dreams. I'm interested in ideas. I want to help people do what I did. But the thing is, as a mentor, I was really particular about not being hypocritical. That's why I stopped coaching for a while, because I'm not setting an example. I am not in the right place. And a coach doesn't necessarily have to be better than you at something, but they should be a leader. They should be a role model. They have to be able to see things that you can't see and hear things that you can't see, and they need to know things that you don't know. So that is my job, is to be a role model, to see things that you can't see, to hear what you can't see, to know what you know, to know the shortcuts, but to know where the landmines are too, things to avoid, and then keep you focused. So you have to tear away these distractions, because there's always somebody wanting your time that does not contribute. See, our conversation today contributes greatly towards my purpose, because I'm on path when I'm speaking with you. I'm following my path. We're having a good time. This is a great way to start the joy. This creates great joy for me to have a great conversation and make a new friend today. So this is a very purposeful on-path conversation. But if people want to call just to talk about gossip, family gossip, I'm not interested. I'm like, I just refuse to waste my time anymore in that nonsense. Because it is nonsense. If it's not making me physically fit, strong, and healthy, I'm going to avoid it. Now, I follow a pretty strict diet, but I'm not a martyr. I'll have pizza, I'll have pasta. But literally in 90 days, it only takes 90 days of focused effort. So what I'm focusing on right now is I'm putting together a 90-day, really simple mentorship program that's going to be on audio, where 5 days a week you get a 5-minute message and a blueprint to do exactly what I did. If you do what I did in 90 days, your life is going to be radically different as mine is.
Wow.
And it's going to be, I'm going to make it, because when I was working as a coach, it was very expensive, $1,000 an hour. That's way out of range for most people. Because I've been through that hardship and difficulty, I'm going to make this extremely affordable, so that a few people, I want to take on a handful of people that I want to work as a test pilot with and mentor daily for 90 days, and that's it. This is not some big $20,000 guru program. It's going to be nothing. It'll be probably $100 to $150 for a month. For 3 months. And in 3 months, if you want to do another 3 months, fine. But in 90 days, your life is going to change radically.
Wow.
And I know, because it's my personal 90-day program that I've done. So that's what I'm excited about.
Earlier in this conversation, you saying that people we know who know, and people we also know who do things also. So reading books give us the knowledge, so that's just the knowing. But then you've been living that, you've been experiencing that, and you've been walking out of that and successfully. So that the doings is something that we make the people believe and follow. Your mentorship and your coaching. So there's a lot of us out there need to rewire our brain, rewire what we're doing. And even if we are in the successful stage of our life, we need to still rewire, ourselves from time to time, to make sure that we're not going to fall into the trap of success, and are not also, So
you have to, I've said there's two things you have to learn to handle. You have to learn how to manage failure, and you have to learn how to manage success. Both.
Yep.
Because when you get successful, there's other distractions that come along, and they can be traps too. But managing your failure, managing your mindset I mean, there's some days you want to give up. Believe me, I've had those days. Every person you've ever admired has had days where they're like, I can't go on. This is never going to work. But you something inside you goes to the next day. That's why I said you have to manage your failure. You have to keep going with the belief that somehow, some way, this is going to work out. This is going to be to my benefit. I don't like it, but it's going to work to my benefit. And when I say rewire the brain, it's like, for example, physical fitness. Before, 90 days ago, I was a person, I've been in shape before, but I at that point, I hated exercise. It's painful, it's sweaty. I completely rewired my brain now where I love it. Eating healthy was a chore. Now it's like I eat something like French fries. I have zero interest in that, like none. If I eat it, I feel awful. I'm like, blech. I completely see the joy I get now. I get joy from eating healthy. I get joy from a good night's rest. I get joy from being physically fit and strong. I get joy from writing down gratitude. Yep. I get joy from making sure I'm focused. I get joy from knowing I had a good day because I kept all these distractions out of the way. But the old story is like, there's two wolves, right? And one is all about hope and fear and failure. And the other wolf is all about hope and purpose and gratitude. And they say they're two wolves are fighting. One is full of hopelessness and fear. The other one has hope for the future and great things and purpose and love and meaning. And which one wins? The one you feed.
Yep, the one we
That's
feed.
the old saying.
Wow.
The one we feed. Right? And we have to constantly, daily, we have to do this on a daily basis. That wolf is always at the door. So on a daily basis, we have to beat it back.
Wow. My friend, thanks a lot for a wonderful conversation today. And the discipline part of doing it daily tell a lot about who you are already there, Les. You know, like a lot of us, Les life carriers, every direction that it carries us, right? And then you know, went to bed and regret that we let the life carry us, but not knowing that we are the one who feeded it. We are the one who let it happen to us, to us also. Thanks a lot for all the insights that you shared today. Amazing journey that you have been having, and you know, my aspirations for you is really, you know, like a lot. And like earlier I say, you know, the feelings that we have from this conversation tells me that you know, it would stick with me, like the moment that you went to that library and read the book. You know, the conversation that we are having tonight, that will last with me, and I believe that our audience who listen to this show will have something that they can carry with them to reflect, to think, and like imprint it in their life, or you know, if they want to make the change, you know.
Well, I'm very, very humbled by that. So thank you very much. I'm very grateful. I hope that it does help somebody. You know, it's important for you and who's listening to know that if one person can do it, another person can do it.
Yep.
It's not going to be easy. This is what you need to know. You know, life is difficult. Anybody who says otherwise is selling something. But that doesn't mean it doesn't come with amazing moments of victory and joy. Because when you have those moments and you work through them, they are all that much better. All that much better. And then at the end of the day, you get to be the person. You get to be that guy. Yep. Or that woman or that person. See, that's what I love. I am that guy. The things you dreamed about, I've got to do, and I am that person. Wow. And I've told you my background for a simple reason. I came from a very humble background. You should know it's not where you come from, it's where you're aiming to go towards, and whatever that way turns out. You know, and I used to dream that I would work with famous people, and I did. Famous people are friends, and we're friends because we're friends. We're not friends because they're famous. I just happened to meet them during the course of work. And when you build a good character, people recognize good character in each other, and that's where that friendship comes from. Some of them are, you know, far more famous and successful than I am, so to speak. But we have friendship that's based on just that.
Yep.
And that is more rewarding than anything. So, yeah.
Thanks a lot, Les, for that. And I'll let my friend Joseph Micheli know that we have a conversation today. And
oh yeah.
And
we worked together at
yeah,
great guy.
I'm bringing him to Vietnam for one of my clients, and I will work on to get it complete for the new customer journey experience that fall into his expertise. I thank you for spending your time to join in our show, and I look forward to another talk with you and Joseph together sometime in the future. If we can arrange that, that would be wonderful. All right.
Actually, that would be a lot of fun. We had a chance to work together a few years ago. I love what he does. I'm a big fan of his work and his philosophy. So, yeah.
Let's
Awesome.
say hello to your family for us, and I on behalf of the program, I am grateful for you because you join our show and sharing all this insightful information for us, and that is, really appreciated from our ends.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and God bless you and your family, and to your whole audience all over the world.
Thank you. Bye bye for now, Les. Okay.
Okay. Take care.
Take
Have
care.
a wonderful evening.
You too.
Take care.
Have a wonderful day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.